Good day, everyone. Today, we will continue our discussion on understanding prophecy. The title is The Players of Prophecy, Part 3. Last time, we discussed about the Antichrist, the prophets, and false prophets. Today, we will talk about the dreams and visions of prophecy. It started in a dream, but it was not just any dream. And as it turned out, there was purpose, meaning, and a series of real events foreshadowed in this dream. It is a vision of the future, delivered through a dream. We are all familiar with dreams, at least those of us who consider ourselves to be normal. Dreams are normal. It comes to us every time we close our eyes and sleep at night, or even during the daytime for those who belong to the night shifts. Afterwards, and usually sooner than later, we would forget about the dream and we move on to a new one. But this is not the case with King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, one of the kings of ancient Babylon, which is modern day Iraq. King Nebuchadnezzar believed strongly this is not just one of his normal, usual, and weird dreams. He felt unusually disturbed. He felt a sense of realism. He felt purpose, reason in this one particular dream. Let us read beginning in Daniel chapter 2 and in verse 1. Now in the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his spirit was so troubled that his sleep left him. Then the king gave the command to call the magicians, the astrologers, the sorcerers, and the Chaldeans to tell the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I have had a dream, and my spirit is anxious to know the dream. And King Nebuchadnezzar was correct. There is indeed purpose and reason in this one dream. And he would soon find out what it meant and why he was a prominent figure in that dream. This is the dream that will run the course of humanity's history for the next hundreds, few thousand of years until that day when the very Creator himself takes over the kingdoms of men. The entire story is recorded for us in Daniel chapter 2. We will not go through the entire chapter, just a few highlights of the relevant parts of the subject we will discuss today. However, when you have the opportunity, I strongly encourage you to read the entire chapter to get a good feel of how the story goes. You will find God has a very dramatic or attention-grabbing way of delivering the message. And all throughout the Bible, we will find that God has this consistent, signature-like style of delivery, and it is undoubtedly very effective as a means of communicating His message, and only the truly stubborn would have refused to listen and take heed. Perhaps at another time, we can go through some of the scenarios in the scriptures, how God sets up and delivering and impressing His messages upon us. And now, we go to the dream of King Nebuchadnezzar. We will pick up the story beginning in Daniel 2, verse 17. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, that they might seek mercies from the God of heaven concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions might not, might not perish with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a night vision. So Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Verse 20, Daniel answered and said, Blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who have understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you. This is now the prayer of Daniel to God after revealing the vision, the dream of King Nebuchadnezzar to him. I thank you and praise you, O God of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we ask of you. For you have made known to us the king's demand. The king answered and said to Daniel. Now, after a while, after the dream was revealed to Daniel, Daniel went to the king. And then the king, verse 26, answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belteshazzar. Daniel is also known as Belteshazzar. Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? Daniel answered in the presence of the king and said, The secret which the king has demanded, the wise men, the astrologers, the magicians, and the soothsayers cannot declare to the king. But there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the latter days. Your dream and the visions of your head upon your bed were these. As for you, O king, thoughts came to your mind while on your bed about what would come to pass after this. He who reveals secrets has made known to you what will be. But as for me, this secret has not been revealed to me because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but for our sakes who make known the interpretation to the king, and that you may know the thoughts of your heart. And Daniel begins to deliver the dream to King Nebuchadnezzar, beginning in verse 31. Daniel said to the king, You, O king, were watching, and behold, a great image. This great image, whose splendor was excellent, stood before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You watched while a stone was cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together, and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind carried them away, so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that struck the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. This is the dream. Now we will tell the interpretation of it before the king. And Daniel continues, verse 37. You, O king, are a king of kings. For the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heaven, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom, inferior to yours. Then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it. Now, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay, and as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. And as you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere. They will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Inasmuch as you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it broke in pieces the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great God has made known to the king what will come to pass after this. The dream is certain, and its interpretation is sure. Now, from what we have just read, it is obvious that God uses dreams or visions to reveal his plans, or as we call them, prophecies. And that he does so not only through the prophets, but even through others, in this particular case, through King Nebuchadnezzar. Although the meaning of the dream itself was revealed through, shall we say, a legitimate prophet, and that prophet is Daniel. This presentation of God is not unique to Daniel. Remember Joseph, the son of Jacob? In Joseph's case, God sent the message of famine to the Pharaoh of Egypt, but chose to reveal the meaning of the dream to Joseph. This appears to be a pattern with God, one of the things that he prefers to do when it comes to matters of prophecy. With King Nebuchadnezzar, the head of gold, Babylon is the biblical first world empire of the known world. Although Nebuchadnezzar himself is not the first king of Babylon, it was his father, Nabopolassar, who was first on the throne. But it was through King Nebuchadnezzar that Babylon ruled the world. The kingdom of Babylon ruled the world for about 66 years. Now, these dates, of course, are approximations. Our Bible scholars, they have slight variations in their historical dating. At this time, Daniel is believed to have been in his teenage years. When Babylon invaded Judah, Jehoiakim, that is the king, was in his third year as king of Judah. and he ruled from about 609 to 598 BC. Daniel was taken captive along with a few other teenagers among the royalties of Judah. From King David, just a bit of a historical trivia. From King David, David was from 1040 to 970 BC, to King Jehoiakim, roughly about 365 years has already passed, in which Daniel at this time was in his teenage years. So from King David to Daniel is about 360 years. And from Daniel to the Lord Jesus is a space of about 600 years. Daniel lived through and served the kingdoms of Babylon and Persia, though there appears to be no exact time or clear historical record of his death. Even the exact location of Daniel's resting place or his tomb is being disputed. Now, after Babylon, which reigned from 605 to 539 BC, the kingdom of Persia at 539 BC took over as world empire. And Persia is the chest and the arms of silver. Then Greece took over from there at 333 BC, and Greece is the belly and the thighs of bronze. And finally, Rome took over at 49 BC, and Rome is the legs of iron, and with its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. God reveals through his prophets the essential meaning of prophecies. God is cautious enough not to leave the interpretation of prophecies through our own or through any man's personal wild imaginations. And there are plenty of wild imaginations or interpretation of prophecies out there. The best way to understand and interpret prophecy is to not interpret it at all. We let the Word of God speak for itself. And the best way to do so is to just read what is written in the Scriptures. As they always say, the Scriptures, the prophecies in the Scriptures, interprets itself. We have this tendency, yes, that's we, all of us, no exemptions, we have this natural tendency to overinterpret what we see, what we hear, what we read. We have this tendency to put more meaning to Scriptures where there should be none. As the dream went on, King Nebuchadnezzar saw a stone described as cut out without hands, which struck the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them. That is, it broke the entire image in pieces. And King Nebuchadnezzar saw the entire statue or image break and shatter into pieces after having been struck by the stone at its feet, which then became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. Now we will not go through the details of the entire image. These are already historically available in the internet in platforms such as the YouTube and Wikipedia. Just be careful when sifting through the information because they can be loaded with personal interpretations. There are a few items, however, I'd like to point out or highlight which a casual reader might miss when reading through Daniel 2. Speaking of Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel was told to tell him, "You are this head of gold, but after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours." Now take note of that word, inferior. What does this statement reveal to us? Let us read that statement again. Speaking of Nebuchadnezzar, Daniel was told to tell him, that is Nebuchadnezzar, "You are this head of gold, but after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours." Now, what does this statement reveal to us? Number one, it tells us God does place significance or value on certain material things such as gold, silver, bronze, and iron, and tells us one is valued above another. Second, while God reveals that Babylon, gold, is superior to Persia, which is silver, in terms of value or quality, it does not mean Persia is a weaker kingdom, as it is clearly stronger, having toppled or overthrown Babylon. Number three, while each kingdom appears to deteriorate in terms of value or quality, it does get stronger in terms of strength, or shall we call power. And number four, the fourth kingdom, which will be our focus of this discussion, the fourth kingdom, which we know to be Rome, and today that is the modern day Italy, is described as inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything, and like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. The fourth kingdom, Rome, which is modern day Italy, as I mentioned earlier, is revealed by God to Daniel as having the nature of a destroyer. Destruction is in its path of war. However, it is also revealed that the feet and toes turn to being partly of potter's clay and partly of iron. The kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of iron shall be in it. And take note of that. It is a mixture, but the strength of iron shall be in it. And this mixture turns the kingdom into what God reveals to Daniel as partly strong and partly fragile. And as the toes of the feet, let us read Daniel chapter 2, verses 42 to 43. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. And as you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle. That is, the iron will mingle with clay, with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. The iron part, the kingdom of which is Rome, remains, but a new element is added into this mix. In Daniel's interpretation of the king's dream, it is referred to as potter's clay or ceramic clay. We know that each element represents a kingdom or a race. Thus, it is only logical that God meant for clay to also represent a nation or nations or a race or races. This means that at the end part of the Roman Empire, it will be allied with a nation or nations or a race or races. But this ally will be significantly weaker. Further, it is revealed that this alliance itself will be weak. However, despite the weakness and lack of consistency, this end-time Roman alliance, partly of iron and partly of potter's clay, will take on the nature of its origin. That is, it will still be a conquering kingdom, an alliance of nations, of Rome and an ally that will go beyond their own territorial borders and attempt to take over other kingdoms, nations, or countries and subjugate them. And this alliance will win wars. And no, this is not just some border territorial dispute waged war. This near future new Roman Empire alliance will literally take over, hold control, rule over, seize possession of other countries and its people. It will be in this world scenario the advance of the new Roman Empire alliance and the resistance, because some countries will resist. The resistance of countries who refuse to be taken over, that the events written by the Apostle John in Revelation comes alive. But before that, let's take a quick glimpse of the beasts of Daniel's dream. As we read through Daniel 7, keep in mind that this dream or vision is a parallel to the image of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Even though God changed the imagery drastically, the general representations are very much the same. Also, do not be surprised when you see or read familiar New Testament words in Daniel 7. Just bear in mind that most of what we read or what we read in what we call as the Old Testament scriptures are a foretelling, prophecies of expecting the coming of the Messiah. So the Old Testament tells us we are to expect a Messiah who is the God-sent Savior, the King, the future King of Israel. And the writings that we refer to normally as the New Testament is a revealing of the identity of who the Messiah is whom God has sent. Let us begin reading Daniel 7 verse 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon. So this is no longer Nebuchadnezzar. This is a new king, Belshazzar, king of Babylon. Daniel had a dream and visions of his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear. It was raised up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said thus to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked, and there was another, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. I watched till thrones were put in place, and the Ancient of Days was seated. His garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head was like pure wool. His throne, his throne was like a fiery flame, its wheels a burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. A thousand thousands ministered to him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated and the books were open. I watched then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. I watched till the beast was slain and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man. Coming with the clouds of heaven, he came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him, that is, to the Son of Man, to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. I, Daniel, was grieved in my spirit within my body, and the visions of my head troubled me. I came near to one of those who stood by and asked him the truth of all this. So he told me and made known to me the interpretation of these things. See what we are talking about earlier? The prophecies in the scriptures had their own interpretation. And if you would just read through it, you will generally be able to read the proper interpretation. Verse 17, those great beasts which are four kings which arise out of the earth. But the saints of the Most High shall receive the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever, even forever and ever. Then I wish to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the others, exceedingly dreadful, with its teeth of iron and its nails of bronze, which devoured, broke in pieces, and trampled the residue with its feet. And the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn which came up, before which 3 fell, namely that horn which had eyes and a mouth which spoke pompous words, whose appearance was greater than his fellows. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them, until the Ancient of Days came, and a judgment was made in favor of the saints of the Most High, and the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on earth, which shall be different from all the other kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it in pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, that is the fourth beast. And another shall arise after them, he shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. Then the saints shall be given into his hand for a time, and times, and half a time. But the court shall be seated, and they shall take away his dominion, to consume and destroy forever. Then the kingdom and dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people, the saints of the Most High. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom, and all dominion shall serve and obey him. This is the end of the account. As for me, and that is Daniel, my thoughts greatly troubled me, and my countenance changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. This final beast of Daniel's vision, in addition to being a parallel of the image of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, also had a parallel in Revelation 13, and the horn spoken of by Daniel and described as pompous also had a parallel in Paul's second letter to the Thessalonians in chapter 2 and verses 3 and 4. We will go through that in a little while. In Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 to 2, this is what we are told. Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And in verse 3, I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. Now let's go to the other parallel in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, beginning in verse 3 to 4. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come, unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. Now these parallel writings of Paul and John to that of the prophet Daniel reveal to us similar and additional details on what we can expect from the soon-to-rise new Roman Empire alliance. And this new Roman Empire alliance is a very prominent player of prophecy in the very near future. The old Roman Empire did not die. It is revealed to us as just almost died. But it will heal, because that is what happens to wounds. Wounds heal. And when it finally heals, the revived Roman Empire will set out again to rule the world once more. Yes, the Roman Empire, present-day Italy, will again have a bow and a crown and will once again go out conquering and to conquer. What is most intriguing in this prophecy is that the beast of Revelation chapter 12 verse 2 seemed to have taken on the attributes of Daniel's prophetic beasts which we read in chapter 7. And as it appears, the strongest attributes of each beast of Daniel chapter 7. We aren't given any more details by the Apostle John, and we will need a modern day true prophet sent by the Father himself, who will be given the meaning and proper interpretation of this prophecy. Now, unfortunately for us, this is the part where we will have to wait and see how it will turn out when this healed beast, the new Roman Empire alliance, and the new prophets of God come out. Next time, we will go deeper. We will continue and discuss more of these players of prophecy. For now, happy Sabbath and enjoy the rest.